Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our highlights release review for performance and goals and succession and career development. It is the Thanksgiving week over in North America, and so our colleagues over there have been kind enough to let the Aussies loose on the release reviews for this year. Joined with me today is Michael Poulter, who is a principal consultant in the talent space, and my name is Claire Badger. I'm the talent practice director over here in Asia Pacific. So welcome to everyone. Hopefully for those of you in Australia, you've got a coffee. Some of you in other parts of the world may be on wine time already. But we're going to start off today by talking about some of the performance and goals highlights from the H2 release. Hey Michael, how you going?
I'm well, Claire. How are you?
I'm pretty well. What's that hat you've got on?
This is a traditional Australian akubra, a hat that they typically wear out in the outback or out in farms. Can't say I get too much use out of it here in the city of Melbourne, but it's good to put on every now and then and get back to the Australian roots.
You can see we've got a nice Australian flag there backing us up on the screen. All right, so let's get into it. So let's talk about some of the hot topics from performance and goals. I reckon the first one we have a look at is the new user interface for goal management. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, look, typically I'm not sold on new interfaces straight away, but looking at this one, I can't really fault it. The way they group goals by statuses, I guess the new kind of look of how they kind of shape the goal plan, it's quite good. It kind of takes away and I guess draws away from so much of a list view, but more a kind of like a tile view of each goal, and can give you a summary of each of those goals on those tiles, leading to, I guess, less clutter on the screen, an ability to filter goals by status or category. Yeah, so for me, that's the standout thing for the new UI.
I think the other thing is that the unified access to career development goals as well as performance management goals. It's long been, I guess, a point of contention with customers around, I guess, managing that change for employees, that they have to navigate to, the performance area or the objective area to get to their performance objectives, and then through to development to get those. So there's now that sort of unified point of access, which is definitely a big improvement.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that will be really well received by a lot of customers.
And I guess the big question for many customers, obviously for many of our customers here in Australia, that performance and goals is often one of the first modules that they implement, and so for many of them they've been on it for quite some time. So the big question will be, when do they implement the new user interface? Now,
yeah.
I guess,
sorry, you go.
So my recommendation to customers that are looking at the new UI is probably don't get too excited and think it's something you need to put on straight away. If you're heading into a new cycle of goal setting, so for those of you on a calendar year, some have got the sort of March timeframe, I would consider putting it in for when your employees are going to start to set goals or objectives. If you're someone that's not setting goals or objectives until, let's say, July, then maybe wait till that point. It just helps you, manage your training materials, your communications. If you put it in, midway through a cycle, it's potentially, just going to cause some unrest and maybe actually not be that good for your process.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, next one. Let's talk about the improvements that have been made to continuous performance management. So there have been quite a few changes to continuous performance management. The first being the new layout of the user interface again, and they use the Kanban style. So let's start with the layout. What do you think about how it looks now?
I think the the layout's actually going to be pretty well received as well. The Kanban, I guess, view is something that a lot of people are probably used to, as I guess companies shift to a more agile approach and agile methodology and projects. etc. So they'll be very accustomed to that straight away. You can group, the Kanban headings, if you want to call it that. You can group it by things that are in progress, things that are completed, things that you're having trouble with, and so anyone that has access to your CPM module will be able to see straight away, without, I guess, having to reach out to you one-on-one, what the status of any activities you're working on are. And then I guess that leads into a good little bit of a segue is the new channel feature for CPM. So
This
taking away from that traditional employee manager relationship, but then extending it to, say, for example, matrix managers, custom managers, and frankly, anyone else in the company. So one of the new features is an employee. So let's say for myself, I could reach out to anyone within the company and start a channel with them. And the channel is referring to, I guess, that ability to have one-on-one meetings with them, work on activities together, discuss activity statuses, and then, I guess, build achievements from those activities. And I guess the useful or the upside of that is that you can now have those channels with, say, project managers that may not necessarily have been already linked to you in that relationship prior. So that for me is another exciting element of CPM.
Yeah, so it's definitely become more activity driven, taking note of, how many operational organizations use SuccessFactors. So they've definitely taken the feedback and they've run with that, right? So they've made it very much activity driven, and the channel feature is great, right? Like we know that the traditional employee and employee manager relationship is not the only relationship employees have within an organization. So I think it's really, really great that SAP have picked that up and addressed that in terms of continuous performance management. I think the other thing is also around the achievements. So previously you could put achievements just about anything, right? So I could go in and be like, I did something kick-ass today. Whereas now they've made it that you've got to attach your achievements to activities. And that just makes the integration with the performance form a lot better, because obviously it makes sure that the achievements and the feedback that people are getting is pulling into the performance form, because previously the standalone feedback just didn't pull in, which, wasn't great use. So Steve Ensor has asked a question just back on the goal management UI around the fact that it's not full featured until H1 2021. So that is indeed correct. However, it is out there in beta. So there are a number of customers already using it, and you have the ability as an organization to opt in for that beta. The full release is scheduled for H1 2021. And so by that point, it will be at general release, not universal though. So you won't be forced at that point to adopt that. So just quickly back to the CPM, just to sort of close out. So topics have been relabeled to discussion topics. I think that's minor, but it does make more sense around what they are for. And then the whole premise around CPM was always that it was mobile, and that's still the same. So it's still highly designed for mobile through the app, whether that's iOS or Android, and it's also compatible through your browser on iPad. Let's talk about the CPM feedback, Michael. So there's been a few changes there.
Yeah, absolutely. I guess with this upgrade, what's happened is that instead of going from a very generic kind of paragraph phrase, let's call it, that you can send out to people within your target population, we can now structure the questions a little bit more. So, for example, you could have, question number one is what do you think I've done well? Question number two would be, where do you think I could work on? What do you think I could work on? Sorry. Question three could be like, where do you see me in 5 years' time? Or what do you think would be a good thing or area to focus on in terms of development? So you can really, they're very generic examples. I mean, you could go into something that's very specific about, the person that you're asking feedback from. So it could be very project related or very, I guess, personal. So that and of course you could do that in the old version, but having these questions, I guess, helps the person giving the feedback as well, just guiding their answer a little bit more, and not so much broad reply, but a more targeted reply as well. So
I think it's easier for the person, like, not only the person asking for feedback and getting, really what they want to get out of the feedback request, but also for the person giving the feedback. I mean, when you get those generic, give me feedback, it's like, I don't know what to say. So at least you've got the ability with the questions to sort of guide the person giving the feedback as well. So it goes two ways.
And the other cool thing about it is that you can now add it or see the feedback directly in the goal plan. Previously, it was only in the performance form, but now that you don't have to wait until performance forms are launched to see it, you can showcase it and highlight it and celebrate it even, immediately in the goal plan. So that's pretty cool.
It is. It is very good. All right.
We've had another question actually from Steve. Asking if once you go to the new goal plan, you can't revert. That is true. So I guess our advice is around that area that play around with it in your test environment, see if it's something you like. We're very confident everyone will like it. And then once you upgrade in production, you won't be able to go back. But look, to be honest, I don't think anyone's really going to go down that path in terms of wanting to revert. It is pretty exciting and it's a great new feature. Yeah,
I agree. All right, I'm going to move on to, we're going to talk about qualtrics in performance forms. So as of this release, there's the ability to, I guess, use the integration with Qualtrics a lot more, allowing you to trigger feedback surveys through route map steps. So as you're going through the performance review process, you can sort of have sideline surveys that go out to employees around, whether it's around the process and process improvement, whether it's around any other specific topics that you are wanting to gather feedback about through that process. So Michael, we haven't had a lot of customers in Australia yet sort of move towards using Qualtrics in that sort of a format. They're still very much using it, for engagement surveys and things like that. But I think this is a big move in terms of performance. And if this is something that customers can adopt, I think it really speaks to, there's a lot of collateral and a lot of material out there following, the pandemic and whatever around organizations needing to keep their finger on the pulse, needing to, listen to what their employees are saying. And this is a way that they can, really build that into the performance review process. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. I think, for those of you familiar with performance processes, they can sometimes be very structured, very, I use the term rigid for want of a better phrase, but, they're very much like, okay, talk to us about how you went around these goals, potentially values, etc. It doesn't really offer, I guess, that opening up for the employee to talk about things that, may be of concern to them or things that they may want to, I guess, highlight or address. So the ability then to, I guess, put these surveys or feedback forums within the performance form, as you said, really allows employers to, actively listen and keep their finger on the pulse to, make sure they're up to date with what, their employees are feeling and experiencing.
Yeah, no, completely agree. I think it's, definitely a great feature. Okay, so exciting one. I've been waiting for this for a really long time. So the redesign of the 360 reports. I mean, I'm not sure what else I can say, but finally. So finally, they sexied up the 360 reports. They are now Fury designed. So they are much cleaner. They look like they've reached the 20th century. They've introduced some new sort of graphs. So there's the radar type spider graph where you can look at your variance and competency ratings, which is quite trendy. And just the way that you can search the reports, locate users, that they're far more interactive. So I don't know what else to say other than finally, to be honest. But what are your thoughts, Michael?
we've already done a demo, so to speak, with one of our customers, highlighting and showcasing the 360 reports, and the feedback we received was amazing. Like, I mean, you hit the nail on the head earlier. Like, bringing the graphs into the 20th century, so to speak. The old ones look very Windows 95,
Yeah.
very very clunky. I guess they did their job, but from like this day and age where the UI is so important, it was really I think it's going to be a very well received upgrade. And also, so far, all comments and feedback received from customers has been exciting and exemplary around it. So I'm really looking forward to it.
I always used to go in a workshop around 360 and you'd show the new form where that looks great. That's been that way for a little while now. And then you get to the 360 reports and you try to like skip past them because you're like, they're ugly.
Skim over that one really quickly. It's like, we won't worry about it. Let's wait until the end of the year to talk about that one.
That's right. I'm really, really happy that that's come about. Anything else you think is hot from performance and goals for the H2 release?
Look, I think they're the main highlights that we've identified, and probably some of the more exciting ones. Having said that, of course, if there are other areas that people are interested in, please ask a question
down below.
Or correct, or get in touch offline if you'd like. So don't hold back.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so let's move on to career development. So there's been a little bit in career development. They've mainly focused around, the career worksheet and the career explorer. So let's start by talking about the career explorer. So in case Steve's still listening, this is also for early adopters, and it is scheduled for full release next year. But it's a big one and an exciting one. So I think it's good to get your head around what's coming now. And if you're a keen early adopter, I'd say go for it. It's great to be on the cutting edge of things. So the Career Explorer really is around leveraging machine learning to be able to suggest suitable roles and training sort of pieces for employees. The machine learning is retrained every 2 weeks. So those algorithms are looked at by SAP. And so it's quite an exciting little piece of functionality. What are your thoughts, Michael?
I think the most comforting thing about it was that we reached out to SAP for comment on it, and they have categorically confirmed that Skynet will not be involved with machine learning. So D-Day and Doomsday will not be happening as a result of the Career Explorer. So that is filling me with a lot of confidence.
I'm glad that they were willing to comment when you reached out for comment. That's great. You reckon some people should get on the early adopter train?
Absolutely. I think it doesn't hurt to, and of course, with machine learning, like that is the way of the future. AI technology, and I guess anything that's going to better the experience or better the ability to help employees like plan their career or offer guidance as to what they should be doing from a development perspective is a no-brainer in my opinion. I think if you can, definitely get on board.
Then moving on to the closely knitted career worksheet. So this is one of my favourite things in SuccessFactors, if I'm completely honest. I always enjoy talking about it. It's a real aspirational tool for employees. It gives them the sort of keys to their own career in a way, right? So they can browse their roles, they can look at what competencies are required for roles that they're looking at for the future. But unfortunately, we often don't get to implement it in its totality because it does take a lot from an organisation to get it up and running. Needing to have a level of a competency framework in place as well as a competency assessment process. So it does take a lot to put in. But once you put it in, I think it really does take your career development processes to that next level. So in the H2 release, they've made a few different changes. So they've changed the colors around just to confuse everybody. So green now means last rating, blue means expected rating, used to be the other way around. That's just to keep people on their toes. They've also done a little bit around some of the labeling and made that a lot clearer. And you can also see which competencies are either not rated or have been rated too new to rate. And you can sort of choose what you want to do in terms of viewing those and removing them from the expected rating calculation, or from the overall readiness rating. They've also done some work around the role-based permissions and controlling who can see the career worksheet. So some small enhancements, but they do make quite a large difference. Michael, any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I think the role-based permission one is going to be a big thing. I mean, typically, a lot of comments we receive are, can this be viewed up the line? Can this be viewed like across, down, etc.? And unfortunately, up until this date, the answer has really been no. But now that they're really pushing out that target population, I guess it just allows a little bit more flexibility. If you want matrix managers, people all the way up the line, people within your team, or if you want to really open it right up, you can. I think filtering of not applicable competencies is also another highlight for me, is that, if something's not applicable to you, you don't really want it to be taken into account, or I guess part of the calculations for whether you're, meeting the requirements for a particular role or not. So the ability to filter that out is exciting, because now it really is a collaborative approach between you and your manager, that, okay, this wasn't necessarily applicable to you, so we don't necessarily have to look at that in terms of development immediately, but also highlights, hey, if this isn't applicable now, let's not forget about it. Let's potentially look at it for year 2, year 3, and see what we can do.
It's basically just more eyes on the prize, right? Having more visibility around what your employees are wanting to do. The more people that can see it, the more people that sort of take a vested interest and help the employee achieve those goals. So can't be bad.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm going to let you talk about the next one that I wanted to talk about, because I know that this has got a little special part in your heart. So the writing assistant and the coaching advisor are now supported through Job Profile Builder.
Yeah, absolutely. So typically when you upgraded to JPB or JDM 2.0, the ability to edit that content was lost. So that has caused a lot of issues for a lot of customers in the past, whereby it might not necessarily have been articulated to them, or for whatever reason. The writing assistant and coaching advisor are very good tools in my opinion. It really helps employees articulate something that they might not necessarily be able to. So it helps guide them with their responses. So now that admins can manage that content all through Admin Center, rather than having to engage perhaps a partner or SAP to manage it through the back end in provisioning, is a huge change, and it really empowers employers and allows them to make changes ad hoc, right then and there, rather than having to engage someone. So for me, that is going to be awesome. And personally, I can't wait to use this in my kind of development plans going forward.
And just to be clear, so you could manage it through Admin Center if you're using legacy families and roles and legacy competencies. It was really for the customers that are on Job Profile Builder, which for most of customers that we implement today, we always go with Job Profile Builder because of the benefits with recruitment and so on. But it definitely is probably the last piece for SAP to really close the gap between the legacy functionality and Job Profile Builder. So yeah, definitely a standout. And then just a reminder, I mean, the communication from SAP has been going on for quite some time about this one, but obviously Career Development Planning Lite version was sunset as of this release. So anyone that is still on CDP Lite, your goal plans or your development plans will be view only now. And so if you are in that situation and you haven't dealt with it as yet, I mean, don't hesitate to reach out. There are a few different options. We've got a blog on the Rizing website that talks about some of the options that you've got around coming off CDP Lite. But just a reminder that has been sunset as at this release. All right, let's move on to Succession. So I don't think it was a big one really for Succession, this release. I mean, we've covered a lot for performance and career development. I don't think there was a huge amount. The first one I wanted to raise was the ability to approve or reject talent pool nominations. So when you're using MDF talent pools, you can now attach an approval workflow so that, I don't know, let's say you've got a talent pool for females in technology. You could have managers nominate them into the talent pool, and it might need to go to some sort of a talent pool owner for approval, could have to go to one manager for approval or whatever. And I think the reason why this is good is because talent pools sometimes became just a bucket of crap. Like if they weren't sort of, managed or maintained by some sort of a pool owner or maybe the HR team, sometimes they got outdated and they really became a little useless. With the approval, I guess you have that way of vetting nominations that are going into the pool. So I think that is quite beneficial. And I think customers that I've implemented with before definitely would see value in that. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, it is a question we get asked quite a bit once we're doing the implementation, is what kind of like governance is there around talent pools, and how do we stop, for example, to your point earlier, like how do we stop, every, Tom, Dick and Harry adding whoever they want in there, so to speak. So that really bridges that gap now. And as you said earlier, you can define that workflow, and typically it'll be like whoever your talent pool owner is. And I guess the additional advantage of it is that the approval now will pop up on the talent pool owners or approvers homepage. So there will be a to-do tile to say, hey, you've got someone that is wanting to be added to a talent pool, or for example, the status or notes around them is changing, or someone wants to delete them from that talent pool. So instead of, I guess, regularly checking in on that talent pool and then making approvals ad hoc and whenever it suited you, that reminder, or I guess that approval or nomination process is right there in your face, and can be done almost immediately if available. So that's going to be a big one, that one.
Yeah, I think so. The next one, look, probably can go with performance as well, but they've done a bit of a UI update on the competency picker. So that's for the talent search. It's also in the performance form if you're adding competencies. Again, they've aligned it with the Fury sort of design principles, and just the general experience around, you can select competencies from role, you can select competencies from a library, and you can also search competencies as well. So that just makes it easier to, I guess, locate and navigate the competencies in general, particularly if you've got a really, really large framework in there. So just a small one, but it does look better. And the last one I wanted to raise for Succession, and probably one of my favorites, is they've updated the logic in the talent search. So if you are frequent users of the talent search, it's always been and logic. So as you build on, let's say, education or education requirements with, let's say, languages, whatever. Yeah. So you build up the requirements, it's always been and this and this and this and this, and you'd end up with, no candidates meeting all of the requirements, but you've got people sort of partially meeting. What you can build in now is and or logic. So you could say, I'm looking for someone that's got this degree or this degree. So it gives you more flexibility in searching, which I think is really good, and more in line with the candidate search in recruitment.
Absolutely. I think the big one that a lot of people will use in this is geographic mobility. So, for example, finding employees that are willing to move to or I guess work in a particular location, and if that location is, in my example, non-English speaking, do they have that language ability? So that, I think, is going to be a big one that a lot of people will use too.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
think
the and and or logic is exciting.
Yeah, I think it was why wasn't it there before? But anyway,
Yeah.
that's all I had on succession, I think. So we'll round out the session with calibration. And there was one in there that I think is really, really great, and that was the ability to enable comments from other sessions. So if you're running multiple, let's say, roll-up sort of calibration sessions using the same template, you can now have the ability to bring in the comments from the other sessions. So, if you're calibrating within line of business, as well as, maybe a cross-functional calibration, you've got the ability to see what was said in other sessions, which I know for many of my customers across performance and talent as well, they often do the roll-up scenario. So I think that's freaking awesome functionality, to
Yeah.
be honest.
Oh, absolutely. And I guess the ease and I guess usability of the module is going to be huge now, because instead of having to go through different sessions or potentially running a report to pull out previous comments, it's all there on the one screen.
Yeah.
It makes it so easy, and all the information you need is right there in front of you. So I mean, look, it is again another question we get asked so often during implementation, and I'm really, quite frankly, excited to be able to share this going forward. So yeah, huge.
Yeah, I agree. And then just a little one on calibration. So now if you purge inactive users, often if you had an inactive user that was the facilitator, that calibration session kind of got lost in the abyss. But when you're purging inactive users now, you can replace the inactive user that's a facilitator with an active one. So, just a small one, but it does make a difference, because often those calibration sessions kind of got a little bit lost. So that's just a little sneaky one. That's all I had on my list. Anything you think has been missed from the highlights or hot topics?
No, I think that's it really. I think as we said before, if there's anything you want us to cover, please ask in the comments, or alternatively do reach out, and we can sort something out there. But no, that's good. I think they're the main highlights, and certainly they're the very, very exciting ones.
Awesome. We'll just pause for a second and see if there's any last comments anyone wants to ask in the chat below. I can see that we've got a question around whether there's anything new for presentations. So there's nothing significant in the presentation space. I mean, it's more about, I guess, leveraging the newer sort of slides that they've brought in over the past few releases, but there's nothing specifically hot on presentations. All right. Doesn't look like we've got any other questions coming through. But as Michael said, if you think of anything at a later date, don't hesitate to reach out. You can message directly via LinkedIn, or going through the Rizing website. So I want to thank everyone for joining, particularly Rizing customers. We do hope everyone in North America has a great Thanksgiving. We're very, very jealous about the fact that we don't have all the public holidays you guys are about to have. And yeah, thanks for joining. Hopefully we'll chat to you all soon.
Time for a Vegemite sandwich.
Vegemite sandwich. See you, everybody.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye.